Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
She said that if there was a time when you were getting beat up in a room and couldn't walk out, you would reimagine it in a way that you were actually able to leave the room.
You were in the courtroom. I want to get your sense of how the jury was reacting to Cassie's testimony throughout the week, especially.
What happens when sweet old love messages run headfirst into 4 days of chilling courtroom revelations? Cassie's explosive allegations, ranging from coercive sex parties to a violent assault, are rattling the courtroom to its core. And Diddy, he's not handling it well.
His ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, is set to retake the stand and face what we expect to be her final round of questioning under cross-examination. Court currently is on a short lunch break, but if you recall, the judge previously said that he wanted Ventura's cross-examination to wrap up before lunch today. Prosecutors have said that Ventura, who's nearly 9 months pregnant, could soon go into labor.
Over the last hour, the defense has been asking Ventura more about her 2018 rape allegation against Combs, Ventura's drug use, her mental health problems, and a 2014 threat that she made to a man who claimed he had seen a sexually explicit tape of her, also raised in court. The defense at one point asking Ventura, quote, "Do you still have love for him?" referring to Combs, and Ventura answered by saying, quote, "I have love for the past and what it was."
Cassie's testimony didn't just shake the courtroom, it stopped it cold. Even the most seasoned observers sat in stunned silence, faces blank with disbelief. This wasn't a story about a messy breakup. It was something darker, deeper, more disturbing. At the heart of her claims were what she called the freak-off parties. These weren't your average celebrity soirees. According to Cassie, these were tightly controlled events designed by Diddy himself, where women were allegedly coerced into acts for his entertainment and that of his high-profile guests early in their relationship. She testified, saying no wasn't an option. She described being stripped of her autonomy, told what to wear, who to speak to, and how to act. Participation wasn't requested, it was expected. To the public, their relationship looked like a glamorous love story. But in court, Cassie revealed a very different reality, one shaped by manipulation and control. Beginning within the very first week they were together, she described being made to feel that enduring these events was simply the cost of staying with him. And when she detailed one particularly harrowing moment, where Diddy allegedly instructed her to engage in sex acts while he watched, the courtroom atmosphere turned suffocating. Observers gasped. Even Diddy struggled to keep his composure. Cassie painted a picture of psychological warfare. She wasn't just a guest at these parties, she was a puppet in a performance she never auditioned for. The prosecution leaned into this testimony, framing it as a critical turning point. They argued that the parties showcased a larger pattern, a campaign of coercion designed to break her spirit and maintain control, and then came the bombshell hints of surveillance footage linked to a 2016 incident. Evidence, they suggested, that would lend Cassie's words undeniable weight. The courtroom, already rattled, now braced for what was coming next.
Defense is right when they say that Cassie Ventura is the most critical witness to this case. The defense is doing its job because what they're trying to do is bring out that she's not a perfect person, that they're saying she might have wanted to engage in these freak-offs on more than one occasion, that she was willingly staying in this relationship with Sean Combs even though she knew that it was an abusive one. They're bringing out things that she said to other people that are less than flattering. All that being said, the government doesn't need to have a perfect victim. What the government has done this week essentially is establishing the sex trafficking crimes that they've charged Sean Combs with. And I would argue that they are well on their way to proving these crimes. A lot of people don't realize that with sex trafficking, you don't have to have movement anywhere. You don't have to go across state lines. A lot of times people confuse it with human smuggling. Here, somebody can be trafficked in their own home. All you really need is someone providing somebody else for that commercial sex act. And when I say commercial, I mean anything of value, not even necessarily money, to be given by force or coercion. And so Cassie Ventura has done her job this week for the government, and now the defense is doing its job to try to make it seem as if she wanted to be in this relationship and that what happened in those freak-offs was not coerced.
The courtroom.
Then came the moment everything changed. The courtroom went silent as prosecutors queued up a video surveillance footage from a 2016 incident, now a cornerstone of Cassie's case. Up until that point, the trial had been built mostly on testimony. But this This was different. This was something you could see. The footage wasn't released to the public, but those in the courtroom described it as clear, disturbing, and deeply corroborative. It showed what Cassie had described in harrowing detail: an explosion of rage, a moment of violence that left her cornered, berated, and physically harmed. The prosecution wasted no time connecting the dots. They argued that this wasn't an isolated moment, it was a snapshot of the broader abuse Cassie claimed to have endured. For the jury, the emotional impact was immediate. Cassie's testimony was no longer just her word. Now it had a visual companion. Reporters in the room described jurors leaning forward, faces tight with tension. Some exchanged glances. Others simply stared, processing the raw emotion on screen. The defense, now clearly on the back foot, tried to counter. They argued the footage lacked context, that one video couldn't define an entire relationship. They brought up old affectionate messages Cassie had sent Diddy, hoping to reframe the narrative, but the damage was done. The footage didn't just support Cassie's account, it pierced through the defense's claims and forced the courtroom to confront the brutal reality she described. It may go down as one of the trial's most pivotal moments. Not just because it validated her story, but because it gave the jury something far more powerful than words: proof.
You were in the courtroom. I want to get your sense of how the jury was reacting to Cassie's testimony throughout the week, especially the pictures and the texts that they got to see so far.
Well, I was in the overflow room today, but the consensus about the jury is that they've been pretty stoic. There was one juror who seemed to have a bit of a reaction when they were shown sealed photos. I believe it was about 2 days ago. These were freeze frames of Cassie and Sean Combs and an escort in an alleged freak-off still shots. So there was a little bit of a reaction there. But again, overall, the consensus also in the overflow room is just that people are shocked at a lot of this testimony, a lot of the evidence that's coming in. And it's tough. We are seeing, I guess, just like this side of Cassie that, unfortunately she's had to disclose to all of us to help get a conviction for Sean Combs. And you really feel for her because she's remained so composed throughout, her cross-examination, her the redirects, and she's 8.5 months pregnant. And we didn't see her lose her temper or just get, angry at all or frustrated. And I find that to be pretty incredible.
The defense came in with a strategy, one they believed could undercut the emotional force of Cassie's testimony. Their weapon? Text messages. Friendly, even affectionate ones that Cassie had allegedly sent to Diddy after their relationship had ended. On the surface, it seemed calculated, a smart move. Paint a picture of warmth and connection to contrast Cassie's allegations of years of abuse. If she really endured such trauma, they implied, why would she ever send him kind words? But inside the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted quickly. What began as a confident tactic soon felt awkward, desperate. Even the messages, though not all made public, reportedly carried a tone of lightheartedness. Casual check-ins. Even expressions of lingering care. The defense clung to these texts like lifelines, suggesting Cassie's behavior didn't match the severity of her claims, but the prosecution wasn't having it. Prosecution audio. Dramatic reenactment. Trauma doesn't move in a straight line. And it doesn't disappear just because the relationship ends. Narrator. They accused the defense of cherry-picking, pulling lines out of context to spin a narrative that erased years of alleged coercion and manipulation. Then came Cassie's response. SFX. Courtroom hush, a pause before testimony resumes. Taking the stand, she didn't flinch. She confirmed the messages. Yes, they were real. But no, they weren't a sign of healing or affection. Cassie voiced dramatization. They weren't love. They were survival. A coping mechanism. A way to avoid provoking him, even from a distance. Narrator. That moment cracked the defense's argument wide open. Suddenly, those texts weren't signs of peace. They were signals of fear. Of someone still navigating the psychological wreckage of a controlling relationship. Diddy's defense hoped the messages would cast doubt. But in the end, they only seemed to deepen the emotional weight of Cassie's swords. Inside the courtroom, the temperature shifted. Outside, the public debated. Some couldn't understand why she would communicate with him at all, but others, especially survivors, knew exactly why. Expert voiceover. In abusive relationships, cutting contact isn't always possible. Sometimes it's safer to play nice, even after you've walked away. Narrator. And so, Cass's explanation did more than neutralize the defense. It transformed their strategy into something darker, a symbol of how little they understood about the trauma they were trying to discredit.
This, like, when you hear all these things, and of course this is their side of the story, but when you hear these things, it's just like, dude, like, why was this man so possessive, so demonic, so just, I don't know, like, you got that much money, you're on the top of the world, and you really think that you're invincible. I mean, people can be rich and do a gang of positive things for people. You know, I ain't saying he ain't never helped anybody out, but a lot of times when they do that, it's to mask all the craziness that they do. But I'm just saying, think about someone in his position just doing good and great things for people, man. But you have this, you know, doing all the freaky stuff, all the, like, that's not the issue with him having that type of life. It's just when all the illegalness comes in, you know? And I think that's what people are getting confused on. They think like the domestic stuff and the other stuff don't go hand in hand. It does. And even though he's not being charged, but it goes hand in hand. And like I said, if you're on the jury, you I don't know how you can look past that. It's the control factor. So he was using intimidation to get what he wants.
As Cassie spoke, all eyes weren't just on her. They were on Diddy, and not just because of the words coming from the witness stand, but because of the ones he wasn't saying from the start. His image had been one of control. Calm. Untouchable. But as Cassie's testimony unfolded, that image began to crack. Her words didn't drift, they landed hard. She named places, dates, acts, describing what she called freak-off parties, coercion, humiliation, a relationship steeped in control. And as she spoke, something changed. Diddy leaned back, looked away. His jaw tightened. His breathing grew deeper. And by the time Cassie detailed the 2016 assault underscored by surveillance footage shown to the jury, the mask slipped. Courtroom observer voiceover. He wasn't just reacting, he was unraveling. You could see the tension, the anger. He clenched his fists, whispered sharply to his legal team. The courtroom froze. Narrator, every sigh, every glance, every twitch. They were being watched, analyzed. And not just by the public, but by the jury. Some jurors turned toward him. Others couldn't look away from Cassie. Their faces registered something beyond shock, concern, discomfort, belief. And when Cassie described the emotional aftermath, the psychological prison of coercion, Diddy's demeanor broke entirely. Silent whispers turned to sharp exchanges with his team. It wasn't loud. But it didn't have to be. The damage was done. Expert voiceover. Legal analyst in trials like this, behavior matters. If the jury sees signs of volatility or control, that can reinforce the very narrative the prosecution is building. Narrator, this trial wasn't just about evidence. It was about perception. And in that moment, the jury may have seen exactly what Cassie had been trying to describe all along.
That if there was a time when you were getting beat up in a room and couldn't walk out, you would reimagine it in a way that you were actually able to leave the room. Do you see this potentially backfiring on the defense?
Oh, Brianna, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yes, you're exactly right. The defense needs to be really careful what they're doing here because she is a victim. She is a victim. She has put herself out there and saying that she survived these horrific instances of rape, of other assaultive behaviors, some of which we've seen evidence of on that videotape that CNN exclusively obtained and then broadcast, and thank goodness for that. And so with the defense trying to go down this road, trying to attack her therapy, the government's going to get right back up there and say, well, the only reason she needed to go to therapy and seek EMDR and the other types of therapy was because of the actions of your client. Combs' attorney team. So they're going to go right back at it and say that had she not been so brutally traumatized, she wouldn't have had to seek therapy, and that's a good thing. And certainly anybody on that jury who's ever been to therapy or knows anything about it, they're going to be thinking about how Cassie Ventura could be being traumatized right now, again, in having to relive all of the various questioning for days from both sides. So you're right, Brianna. This is a slippery slope that the defense team is on right now with her.
Cassie.
Narrator, resolute, reflective. This isn't just a trial. It's a reckoning. Cassie's case against Diddy is part of a seismic shift in Hollywood, a shift that's exposing the shadow systems that have protected powerful men for decades. Not long ago, a lawsuit like this would have been buried, whispered about, dismissed as scandalous gossip. But in a post-#Me Too world, silence is no longer an option. SFX. Clicking cameras, news anchor snippets, social media notification sounds, from Weinstein to R. Kelly to Russell Simmons, Hollywood's once untouchable titans are facing consequences. And now, Diddy's legacy hangs in the balance. Cassie's claims are serious: coercion, control, systematic abuse. The kind of allegations that don't just stain a name, they ignite a movement. Narrator. Some people still ask, why now? Why wait? Why stay silent? The answers lie in the power imbalance, in the fear of backlash, in the control celebrities wield not just over careers, but over perception. And while some fans point to those post-breakup messages as proof of a mutual relationship, others see them for what they truly are: evidence of a deeper, more complex reality. Industry source, voiced in Hollywood, image is everything. And when someone challenges that image, they don't just risk their reputation. They risk everything. Narrator, Cassie didn't just accuse an ex. She challenged a system. A system that's kept many women and men silent for years. The implications go far beyond Diddy. This is about what we tolerate, what we excuse, what we finally say no to. And for Diddy, this trial could redefine everything. His empire, his influence, his image, because whether or not he's found legally responsible, the court of public opinion is already delivering its verdict. And it's loud. Narrator, final note: Hollywood is changing. Slowly, painfully, but it's changing. And cases like this, messy, high-profile, controversial, are lighting the way. One voice at a time.